Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you're all doing well out there. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Impact Tribe podcast, where we meet exceptional people who create a positive impact in the world. I'm your host, Ashley Bright. We are streaming live on LinkedIn and YouTube. And if you're on any of those channels, Instagram included, I'd love a follow or a subscribe. We are at the Impact Tribe podcast. And quick shout out to our sponsor, Opus Clip. If you're not familiar with Opus Clip, they are an amazing AI video editing software. They help you take long form video and turn it into small bite-sized chunks. They do all the editing and the captioning and all that good stuff. It is an awesome, awesome product. And so if you're interested in that, use this code right here to get a discount, support our sponsors, and save yourself a lot of time and frustration. This is a godsend for me, so I highly, highly recommend. All right, now the part that I love. Let's get into it. Let's get to our guest today. This is a good friend of mine. We were just chatting in the green room about how we have not seen each other in years and years and years, and so this is a wonderful opportunity to catch up. So I am excited to welcome an award-winning company culture whisperer. I have not heard that term before, but I am intrigued and I love it. He is also a strategy guru. He has been recognized as one of the 40 under 40 by the Phoenix Business Journal. He currently serves as Chief of Staff and Head of Investor Relations at evolvedMD, which is an Inc. 5000 company. All right, so everyone, please put your hands together for my friend, Sentari Minor. Let's get him up on the stage here. Boom. There he is. Hey there, my friend. So good to see you.
Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been far too long. And
Way too
so
long.
I'm glad you could be here. How is your day going or your morning?
It's good. It's today Thursday. It's good.
It is Thursday.
Yes, it's a good day. I have I have a panel right after this talking about some things in culture actually, and then driving up to Flagstaff tonight because my stepdaughter is graduating from NAU, so we'll be up at
Wow.
Flag all weekend. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's a good day.
Wonderful. That's great. Well, I'm glad that I can help kick things off on the right foot. And so I gave that intro there, the award-winning company culture whisperer, which I love. Anyone that's whispering these things means it's good stuff. But so why don't we start there? Like, talk to me about kind of, I guess, that reference. Like, what is that all about?
Yeah. So really important to me is how does culture shape an organization, right? So I had the great fortune of being employee sub 10, so one of the first 10 employees of the company I'm with now, evolvedMD, and now we're over 200 plus employees, which is kind of crazy to think about that growth over the last 5 years. And I think the growth has been great, but how we treat our employees and just the employee experience is all built on this very unique culture that we've built. And I've been able to be at the forefront of the folks at the start of that. And so when I think about the work that I'm most passionate about, it is kind of how do you build a culture in an organization that's inclusive, that's performance driven, but above all, taking care of the humans first. And so it's something I'm very passionate about and something I love to do.
That's wonderful. I think, I don't want to equate sort of these two, but I feel like when we talk about company culture, it's also, there's a disconnect in the way many people think about it. Similar to, I come from a design background and the way people talk about creating a brand. And so some people, it's like, oh, it's just a logo and some colors. You're like, no, it's a lot more than that. I don't imagine for you, it's like culture is not just like some mission you stick on the wall and put in your handouts, but it's actually like really steeped in everything that's going on from top to bottom, side to side.
I think about culture being in like the ethos of what you do. So culture is like how you treat people during conflict. How do you support your employees? How do you talk about the impact and work that you do? So it's, to your point, it's not just like values you stick on a wall or things that you talk about once a year. It's really how do you interact with your people every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important. And I've been involved lately in a lot of HR discussions, and there's I think a similar element there where HR can be very sort of performative and administrative, but really at its heart, and you said it in the opening, like it should be about the people and the humans involved and how do we support them? How do we support those diverse needs, challenges, and opportunities they have? And so I'm curious, is this something that you have sort of learned over time in your career? Was this something you trained for? How did you sort of get into this type of a space and this interest in it?
That's a great question. I think on the culture side, I've always been, or at least my last few professional endeavors have been around having a group of leaders and kind of building up their capacity to lead. So I was director at Social Venture Partners of Arizona. So I work with local philanthropists and building out their capacity building and philanthropic journey. So I was always around folks of kind of titans of industry who wanted to learn more about how to be more involved and engaged in the community, right? And so after that ran a kind of a CEO consortium called Alder. So I was here in Phoenix, Dallas, and San Francisco, and the same thing. Like, how do you get the people of means and people who are of importance to really connect philanthropically, politically, and around social impact? And so for me, I've just been around the humans, right? So when I came over to evolvedMD, I knew very much like what makes people tick, how to drive people towards impact and change, how to have these really thoughtful and meaningful conversations about doing what's right. And so yeah, building the culture was kind of something I didn't go to school for it. I just kind of learned it throughout the jobs that I've had. And I think the through line is I talk about in my bio wanting to bring the best out of people and companies. Like, I'm super passionate about helping people level up. And so every job I've had has been some part of that. And so that's how I've kind of rolled into the culture piece, because at the end of the day, my job as a leader and as our chief of staff is to make sure every single employee can do their best work every day.
Got it. That's so important. And there's so many things I think nowadays they're trendy and people give lip service to them. Culture, brand is another one.
Brand is a big one, yeah.
Brand is a big one. But this is the one thing that gives me hope about our society. I mean, there's many things, but is the fact that there's a lot of sort of fly by night operations. There's a lot of kind of like get rich quick schemes and shiny objects. But anything of real true value and impact takes time to develop, and you have to have people that are engaged. And in the green room, I use the analogy of working out and getting in shape. And I think there's a similarity there, which is like, hey, everybody knows what they have to do intuitively, but very few people do it. And so you have to have people that are willing to step in and have that growth mindset and are ready to put in the work that it takes.
Yeah.
And so on that, I was going to say on that point, like, do you run into sort of challenges or pushback on adoption or that kind of thing, or are most people kind of on board?
That is a great question. I think what we've learned over the course of 5 years is we hire and also fire by cultural fit, right? So I'm really proud of the work that we've done in that if a leader has not been aligned to those values and aligned to that culture of supporting your people, being vulnerable with them as they're vulnerable with you, really understanding that the world has changed, and so you have to people come to work as their total selves, and gone are the days where it's like, well, you keep that at home, you're here to work. It's like, no, you're who you are at work, and we fully believe that. And so we've had leaders that have come and gone and they just have not aligned to that, and so important for us is how we treat our folks. So I would say, yeah, we've had some challenges, and that's just kind of maybe old school and traditional mentality coming over from other gigs or just baggage that people have. And so those are kind of non-negotiables, especially as a leader in the company. And so we've had not challenges, but we've had some great opportunities to either coach people into the culture or coach people out of it.
I love that. It's not, it's about opportunities. And I mean, human beings are wonderful, but there's messiness there. There's baggage.
They're complicated. Yes.
They're complicated. And that is the key there, is I think there's complexity. There's nuance, and you have to be willing to understand that and maybe get a little messy and kind of, but also create those safe spaces for that kind of conversation. And this is the work you're doing, and so many other people, is what gives me hope.
Good. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad we're giving you a little,
because we don't need to get into it, but we know there's a lot of other things going on out there that are making you feel occasionally a little hopeless, I think.
Yep.
At least speaking for myself.
Yeah, we think about, I mean, I talk to my staff a lot around kind of the circles of control and influence, which is like, yeah, the world might be chaotic and there's a lot going on, but like, how do you control this piece, like this small piece of the pie, what you can actually impact and influence, and then also use your influence to make the day a better place for someone else. And so as all the things are happening in the world, like, I know that I can treat my employees well. I know that I can teach others to treat their employees well. I know that I can be a safe space for any of my employees or anyone in the company to come to around what they're thinking about what's happening. And so if I can do just that, that's a big win in a world where I know I can't influence everything, but I can influence these small things.
100%. And it's so important to keep in mind. I think we lose sight of it. We were talking earlier about my 17-year-old, and he is more engaged in the world and what's going on than I ever was at his age. But he's still 17. And so there's that sense of overwhelm and anxiety and uncertainty. And whether you're 17 or 50 or whatever, we're all human beings. And so that is something that it weighs on you. And so I love that idea or that approach of saying, like, you can't control all of these other external things, but what you can control is here and how you show up and how you engage with people.
Exactly.
I love those little moments when I go for a walk in the morning or I'm out jogging and I don't know who this person is, but we pass and there's a moment of, good morning or how are you? And it's those little interactions and those little moments that could be a wonderful change of energy for that person when you
Yeah.
walk by and say hi.
And it doesn't cost you anything to smile. I love just like to your point, any room I'm in, anytime I walk by someone, just a simple smile and a wave goes so far for someone. Just like I acknowledge you and I want what's best for you. And in that simple moment, it's a great thing to do.
It is. And I'm going to ask this because this is something we talked about my son briefly, but something I was not raised with, which have instilled in him, which is, instilled. I mean, it's been an ongoing process of emotional intelligence. And I have only really been developing it. I guess I've been developing it all my life, but I credit my wife with really helping me pull that out. So I was going to ask, you talked about hiring and firing for kind of cultural fit and things like that. Do you find, where am I going with this? Emotional intelligence, obviously a critical skill. Is it something that you're able to do you have sort of a radar you can kind of feel like this person's on the cusp of starting to grasp this, or this person, I don't know if they're ever going to get it. I'm not sure where the question is in there, but
That's a good question. I think it's hard to kind of suss that out in an interview. I think it's more so like how do they show up for the first 90 days, and then you can see like they're either getting it or not, or they're not. Or I think again, there's a lot of untraining that we have to do with folks of just like the baggage they've had from life, previous experiences of like, hey, it's not appropriate to talk to an employee like that, or like this is just not how we do things here. And there are other company cultures where that works, and kudos to them that would never be someplace I could work or I could thrive. But it's pretty obvious in like someone's first 90 days whether or not that like they are emotionally intelligent, they're situationally aware, if they're empathetic. Those things you can suss out pretty well, and then you have to make the decision of like, can you coach them up and help them learn, or is it something where it's just like this just isn't going to work because we're misaligned on those values.
Absolutely. Well, so I loved hearing what you're up to and how you've been having an impact. But I said in the opening that we are friends, but I have to claim ignorance. I don't know a whole lot about your life outside of the professional space, and so I'm curious, like, where did you grow up? Like, what were some of your influences? Who made Sentari Minor?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So I'm a Phoenix native, so I grew up in Phoenix. Loved growing up here. I actually did there was a Black speaker series. Pre-pandemic, and they brought together kind of 5 to 6 Black storytellers once a month for First Friday for a couple of years, and I did a story about it was called "Drink the Kool-Aid," and it was around just growing up Black and mostly kind of white spaces, and how do you influence being Black in white spaces. And so from high school through college through my career, it's been like that's been the through line. So that's a lot of what I talk about. But yeah, grew up in Phoenix, went to school in Indiana. I love Phoenix a lot. I don't think I'll ever leave the Valley. People ask all the time, would you ever move elsewhere? Like, no, I do. I like Arizona and I like Phoenix. What else would you like to know about me? What else could I tell you about how I came to be?
How you came to be. Well, I'm curious. So what you spoke about and some of those things you brought up and how you move through the world, is that something that you sort of learned intuitively as sort of a skill growing up? Is that something that you had an influence in your life that helped you kind of look at that? And I ask it with the context that I've had a number of guests on the show who've spoken of similar evolutions, I guess, as they've moved through the space as an African American in our society, and that they've gone through that time where they were really pushing back on everything, and there was a lot of anger and frustration, and then they sort of had a shift because of some experiences and people in their lives, and they looked for the positive and how to uplift. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, was that you always had that, or was that something you kind of learned?
It was something I would say from that the talk that I gave was like from a very young age, regardless of the space, I was always like influencing someone. And so I always talk about especially for parents, like it's so important to have parents that are so supportive that you have the confidence no matter what. So I was always a confident kid. Like I was always told you can and you can and you should. And so that was kind of the thing that drove me. And then it wasn't until high school where I was in like a very competitive high school with very diverse competitive high school, but really got to see like, all right, this is how you level up, and these are the people that are going to help do that. And then when I went to college, went to a small liberal arts school in Indiana, and then joined a fraternity, which was mostly white. I think that's where I was really like, oh, I now know I now know what I need to do to kind of move through spaces, because this is going to be the world that I'm in no matter what. This is just where we are as America. And so had to not just learn, but also kind of like embrace and lean into like, this is what I'm going to have to do to kind of build my career and also just build myself professionally.
And so given all that, how do you kind of maintain a sense, because we're obviously all influenced by our environments and the people around us. And I'm just thinking of like high school and college and those real formative years. And I think about myself. I was actually doing an exercise yesterday where I was sort of thinking about musical influences and different things when I was in high school, and they just were changing constantly. And so I'm curious, like, did you always have a really clear sense of self? You spoke about confidence in order to move through that and sort of, as you said, kind of evaluate the field, if you will, of sort of how I move where I want to go, but also maintaining who you are.
Yeah, I think for better or for worse, I've always been unabashedly me. So I always joke that either you really love Centauri, or you really do not like Centauri, and I'm good with either one. But yeah, I've always just been so confident in me, and having a family that push that. I've always had a center of self, and I would say it wasn't until maybe 2020, where, well, a little bit before 2020, when I started leaning more into kind of like Black causes and Black organizations. And that's where I've spent a lot of time the last couple of years of saying, like, how do you work through this world by also realizing your identity and how you show up and appear in the world. And that's been it's been a wonderful process as well.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. And I don't know anyone that could not appreciate a little Centauri in their lives, a little or a lot. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Love that. No, thank you. Appreciate that.
I mean, I've been without Sentari in my life for far too long in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Yes, we got to change that, by the way.
I know. Life gets in the way. Life happens. But I remember do you remember the very first time we met? I remember it very specifically.
I'm assuming it was for Fast Pitch for SVP. Was that it?
It was. And it was a wonderful way to meet, because I think we just completed the event, and you'd come down to attend it. And I distinctly remember you saying something to the effect of like, "How did you do this?" Which I was like, "Yay, a little pat on the back. Thank you so much."
Yes.
Because it was our first time doing Fast Pitch down here. And I do remember at the time I wasn't as familiar with Fast Pitch and at other social venture partners events, but they specifically said, like, there's a lot of baggage and kind of pomp and circumstance in some of these others. We want to keep it streamlined and get to the speakers. And so that's what we did. But then I subsequently
did a great job. Yeah.
Thank you. And I feel very fortunate. I ran that, well, not ran it, but I helped be heavily involved for 5 years. And it's, I mean, in some ways, there's a parallel in terms of the way you're helping people develop in the culture and the way they show up in the professional environment. And similarly, I am helping people the way they stand up and they show up on stage and they speak and they're heard. And there's something that is just so powerful and just this never-ending source of energy and fuel when you're helping people
When you're helping people, yes,
grow. It's a wonderful thing.
I do love that. No, thanks for that call out.
Oh, definitely. um and then so where do you are you you're loving what you're doing. I'm
I love
assuming
it.
you've
Yes,
been there
yes,
for
I
a
do.
while, employee 10 or 12, as you sort of said. What do you are there things that are sort of on the horizon for you in terms of big, whether it's professional or personal things that you're working towards? I feel like you strike me as someone that's got goals, and so I'm curious, is there anything on the horizon for you that is keeping you busy?
Keeping me busy. I mean, mostly we're a high growth company, so most of my time is spent making, as we just talked about, helping ensure that our executive team and other leaders in the company are able to perform at the level that they can to make sure that we kind of grow our customer base, which means we can impact more patients around the country. The work that we do is we actually we integrate behavioral health into primary care, so we help kind of reduce stigma and increase access to therapy for folks all around the country. We're in the American Southwest, so we're in Arizona, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and also Florida. And so we get to see the patient impact each and every day of someone who's never been to therapy before and getting their eyes open to that, or someone who's been struggling for so long and they finally get to sit down with one of our therapists. And so I love that work. And so being part of the team that gets to expand that work is really exciting. And then on the horizon for us, at least as a company, we're really pushing this piece around in traditional behavioral health or traditional mental health. There's not a lot of outcomes based work. Like you've probably seen I've seen my therapist for gosh, 5 years, but like to what end?
Yeah.
There's no plan. It's just kind of like, all right, I check in, and we want to make sure that therapy is as measurement based and outcomes driven, so that if you go see one of our therapists, there's a plan to say like, all right, Ashley, we're getting you the skills and things that you need to go off on your own. We're one of the first companies to do that, and I'm excited to really lead the communications around that work, the positioning around that work. So that's coming in the next kind of 3 to 6 months about how we talk about that to the market. And then outside of work, what else is going on? Man, a lot. I mean, I sit on, as you know, a lot of community boards, so I'm really involved in the nonprofit space, both in Arizona and nationally. So there's just a lot of really good work that we're doing, and in the State 48 Foundation, which I serve as president of, and Seed Spot, I chair that board. And so working with entrepreneurs who are making an impact and helping them level up is also something that I spend a lot of time doing, and I love it.
Wow, it's everyone's getting so much good Sentari out there. You could never get enough. You could never get enough. So, question for you, and this is prompted by I had a conversation with an individual yesterday who is in Europe, and this was, I think, more around sort of the for-profit startup space, but they were sort of flagging a frustration in young entrepreneurs coming up that have a very sort of short-sighted view of kind of what they can do with an organization and the impact they can have, and many times it's driven by sort of revenue and exit strategies and things like that. So I'm curious, in the work you're doing, do you see a similar thing with younger people, or because you work with a lot of nonprofits and social impact, is there do you not see that? Is there a different or a longer term view?
I think it just depends on the person and the company. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think for a lot of startups that are venture backed, it's like the goal is to get to exit, right? So there is a short term view of like, how quickly can I get to profitability so that someone can come buy this, and that's kind of what's been
Mm-hmm.
pushed, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that
Mm-hmm.
is definitely a thing. I think, as we talked about before, impact takes a while. It
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of stakeholders. It takes a lot of resources. It just takes a while, and so I think that it's almost next to impossible to have a short-term view of anything that's going to be impact or purpose-driven.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can try, but you won't really make
You're
a
going to be
dent
very
in the work.
frustrated.
You're going to be very frustrated. I mean, I think about something like a big homelessness, for instance, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it seems that there's not any amount of money that's going to make that go away until we get to root causes, and then root causes
Mm-hmm.
take time. It's like, how do you break generational poverty? Like these are generational decades work.
Yeah.
You can't have an organization or a nonprofit that's only there for 5 or 10 years thinking they're going to make a dent. Although again, that small work that they did, I don't want to discount because it's also important and impactful. But for this long term view, being short sighted is just it's not going to work.
Let me ask you this, because I noticed this in the little bit of work that I did, well, a little bit, but I mean, working with for-profits and nonprofits. And I always, and this is an oversimplified view, but I always felt like for-profits, they had that strategy and that kind of that goal-oriented approach to things. And in the nonprofit space, a lot of people I worked with, they were completely heartfelt, but they lacked some of that strategy. And so I'm curious if you see that as well, or if you're starting to see a change. And I'll highlight this. I remember this is probably 7 or 8 years ago. I was at a nonprofit event, and one of the heads of the the food bank of Southern Arizona was speaking, and he was highlighting the fact that there needed to be, he was talking about two nonprofits doing similar work, and was that really valuable, and maybe they need to be sort of looking to consolidate and look for best practices. And you could tell it was rubbing people the wrong way. And and so I'm curious, and that was 7, 8 years ago, but I was an outsider and I was looking at it going, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so I'm curious, is that something you've seen? Is that something you've seen changing? Am I completely off base here?
No, that's a great question. I mean, if you follow the work of Dan Pilata, he wrote Uncharitable, and he did that one of the most famous TED Talks about how we think about nonprofits and charity is dead wrong. And I think there is one, nonprofits already come at a disadvantage because there's no, I mean, you have to, most of your budget is based on philanthropic gifts, right? And so you're already at a disadvantage from a for-profit company that can go get venture or PE money. I do think for the most part, nonprofits are so resource constrained that it's hard to be strategic, and so it's not a fault of their own, just a fault of the system. I do think there are some nonprofits that are really thoughtful. I sit on the board of Goodwill, for instance, and it's one of the larger nonprofits in Arizona, and I put them up against any for-profit for the work and strategy and things they can do. So I think it's all about resources and the mission. And I've also seen some for-profit companies that are not as impactful or not as kind of great at business as nonprofits. So I think it's kind of just the leader that's involved, the specific mission. But I do think for the most part, it's hard for nonprofits because of just that funding mechanism.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, nonprofits are, I think, held to a very different standard. And I think I remember attending something, and a nonprofit leader was sort of, saying that, like, if Apple was a nonprofit and you bought an iPhone, you would want the ear of the CEO to find out, like, well, where did my purchase money go, and like which part of the company did it fund, and what part of the components did it make?
There's just and Dan talks about that, and then we did a lot of work about that at Social Venture Partners, which is invest in nonprofits for unrestricted dollars. It's like, give them money to do what they know how to do best with, and don't ask so many questions about where your $1,000 went. Just like, they know what's right, what to do with their money, go for it. And so again, that disadvantage is glaringly obvious at some points.
Obvious, unfortunately, but well, nonetheless, we're out there, we're doing it, people are doing it, and I'm so glad that they're doing that, and gives me hope. Gives me a lot of hope. So
love giving you a lot of hope this
that's
session.
What it's all about. I hope those listening are getting hope, feeling hope, all those good things. So I was going to ask, what we've talked a lot about professional and your upbringing and influences and things like that. What sort of things does Sentari do for fun? Like, what do you do to recharge when you're not sitting on boards and forming culture and moving forward with behavioral health changes and outcomes?
Yeah, I'm a big movie buff, so I'm probably in a movie theater. I know I'm in a movie theater at least once a week. So love seeing movies, love seeing film. And then one of the things that I'm working with my executive coach actually is he works on aliveness. So what are the things that make you feel the most alive? And I love creative writing. So studied creative writing in college, got published a couple of times right after college, and haven't really written a lot since. So this year I've been setting an intention to write. And so that's where I like to recharge. So I'll sit at a coffee shop or a bar or a bookstore and just sit and read the New Yorker, get ideas, and then just write a couple of poems, some short stories, some flash fiction. So yeah, I'm either in a movie theater or writing, or I watch I know I shouldn't say it, a lot of trashy TV. I love it. Those are the things I love to do.
Hey, we all need that escape, right?
We all need that escape.
That is so good. So very briefly, I mean, talking about movies, can we talk about Sinners? Have you seen that?
I've seen it twice. You have to see it in IMAX.
Oh, I
Uh,
haven't seen it
you
IMAX. We
have to
saw it
see
at
it
the
in
Roadhouse
IMAX.
down here,
It's so good.
and there was so many layers. I mean, it was a fabulous film, really well executed, but there were so many layers there. I loved it. And I
It
have
was
been
so good.
subsequently just watching all sorts of like TikToks and Instagram reels, like all the different nuances and the layers. And so
Yeah, I mean, see it in IMAX. It's amazing. You just see it in a very different light. But I'll probably go see that again, probably this weekend, actually.
So I'm curious with what was, I mean, there's so many things that stood out. As I'm about to ask this question, I'm like, I don't think we have another half hour to talk about this. But for anyone watching and listening to this, go see that movie.
Go see
Go
it
see
like
that movie.
today. Yes.
Seriously, I mean, it's such an entertaining film, and I love films with there's so many layers.
So good.
Just peel it all back, and anyway, all right. Well, we won't go down that path, other than to say, check it out.
Go see that movie.
Go see the movie. Excellent. All right. Well, we're at our time, if you will.
That went by so fast.
It did. And this is what I love about this podcast is I don't have an agenda. I don't have the other day, Sentari reached out and said, are there like a specific set of questions or things we should be going through? And I said, no,
We're
not really.
Talk.
Just talk. I find that's the best way to do it. And it's an important part, going back to our very beginning, circling back to culture and people, is being present and listening. And I found early on when I was doing this podcast, when I had my list of questions and I was trying to move the interview based on the answers that were being given, I was not present.
Yeah.
I was busy trying to organize.
This is a great conversation. I like that it's conversational. I like that it's just kind of discussion back and forth. So kudos.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So, I want to say thank you so much to you, my friend. I've said this a number of times. It's been way, way, way too long since we've hung out. And part of that is driven by the fact that I am 2 hours away, but that's not really enough of a reason.
We can make it work.
We can make it work, definitely. But I just want to thank you so much for your time and the work that you're doing in the community and the energy that you bring to showing up, and those moments, whether they're sort of a smile as we walk by, get a little Sentari, or whether you actually get to sit down like this across the table, if you will, the virtual table, and get a full half hour of the Sentari energy. So
this is
I
awesome.
just want to thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having me. This is a great conversation. Appreciate it too.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, with that, I will say thank you, and on to your busy day, which I know you're on panels and you've got some other things going on. So onward, my friend, to do your good works. And I thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right, everyone. I want to thank you out there for watching and appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here. Big shout out to Sentari. Thank you for bringing it and just sharing of yourself. This is what it's all about, is learning and growing together. For anyone out there who wants to share this to someone who did not see it, the replay is available the moment I hit done on LinkedIn and YouTube. And a reminder, please give us a follow or a subscribe on YouTube and Instagram at the Impact Tribe Podcast. And if you'd like this and you want to see the next one, I welcome you to join me for the next Impact Tribe Podcast, which is Thursday, May 22nd, with my guest, an amazing individual, Toby Kang. I'm saying his name, Kang. He's going to beat me up for this virtually, but an amazing individual. He's a dynamic speaker, consultant, thought leader in the employee experience and HR transformation space. He is all about social learning. He is the co-founder of Freeformers. He champions human-centered approach to workplace design, focusing on mutual lifetime value, ensuring both employees and organizations thrive. What a crazy idea, that we all thrive together. So until next time, everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for creating a positive impact in your world. Together, we can make change happen. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Cheers.